Tom time. Hello, welcome everyone to another demo edition of Tom Time, where I'm trying to run through some of the fluidity of what I want to do here and get used to some of the transitions and clips and things like that. And maybe I'll put this up on YouTube as well, because all of the practice is getting old and playing around is getting old. So welcome everybody to another edition of Tom Time, where I say whatever the hell I want to say, just as we all should be doing, because we are rapidly approaching tyrannical loss of freedom of speech if people don't start to wake up and realize what's going on. And the only way to do that is to continue to speak, learn, speak, learn. So putting shows together, definitely not something I ever planned on doing, but I think is now a necessity when you look around and see all of the things that many researchers, who many people call chills and all of these things, however, they haven't actually done the research themselves and dismissed things as conspiracy theories, and all of the research put together coming around all around us. Last night, Lisa and I did our Meeting of the Minds podcast, and Sarah couldn't join us. We missed you, Sarah. But went over some of the Nag Hammadi texts that are described in John Lamlash's book, Not in His Image, that Jay Parker refers to a lot. And Gnostic writings, of course, but texts found unmolested that tell the story of what's going on all around us right now, which to me is absurd. Why people can't connect a virtual reality experience while people in the millions and billions probably are putting on virtual reality Oculus Rift masks and changing the frequency in which their eyes decode their environment and projecting another one. And the concept is going on publicly as a great thing, while a criminal cabal still controls the world, still keeps the mental states of the aggregate population in a complete polarized trance against one another over nonsensical issues that are going to go exactly the way, however, the Muppet in charge is told by the bankers and dark occultists that run the world, and warmongers, all the same people, by the way, to do. And yet here we still remain heading towards this fake-ass utopia of safety and nothing but controlled uniformity and a stifling of the entire human imagination and freedom altogether. I recently saw that movie. It just happened to be on. I caught on one of the free channels, Demolition Man, if anybody remembers that movie. They have been putting these concepts in front of us. Of course, they go into the 21st century with Hunger Games and The Giver, a great book, by the way, better than the movie. And, all the other ones, Maze Runner, I mean, you name it, But they've been putting this shit in front of us since the 90s with movies like Demolition Man. It's a very cheesy movie, but hilarious. Sylvester Stallone and Wesley Snipes. They wake up in the future and everything is just supposedly perfect if you abide by the law and don't do what is deemed unlawful, which is arrived at by one man running the entire quote-unquote utopia, who decides that if things are bad for you, then they're illegal. And you abide by them, and hey, you're good, man. But, of course, in that movie, like all movies, the rebels, who are seeking nothing but freedom, food, the right to exist, under natural law, God's law, choosing and understanding morality and living that way by expressing and accepting freedom of all, the right to choose, and teaching ourselves and our children what actual true objective morality is, which is not causing unwarranted, unjust harm upon another living being. Pretty damn simple. And that includes fake-ass Project for New American Century Wars that we went over last week and saying, well, I got my orders, that's what I was told, doesn't matter. These continued violations of the natural laws all around us are why these enslavers continue to control the world, because they control the mental state of the aggregate population, and they can easily be set at war with one another. I mentioned last night, the only show I still watch on TV is Survivor. If you want to see how easy people can be set at war, look at what lies and manipulation can do in a simple TV show. Again, in the show, propaganda aside and plants that are there to sell an agenda aside now, which is in everything and always was, but very noticeably now. The show itself is a show about human psychology and the manipulation of emotions by using logic and blocking out certain emotions within the person that's stepping on everybody while they manipulate everybody's emotions in a survival mode, in our complex mode, to come out on top and not only collect $1 million, but to win that title of Sole Survivor. If you understand and watch the interactions in that game, you'll see that all around you in the work world, in schools, the hallways, the malls. And it's the mentality people need to get out of. See, again, you can learn things by watching quote unquote negative content. For everybody that thinks they have to avoid everything, avoiding everything isn't going to help our current situation. You have to understand the environment in which you live, and you have to understand yourself and your own behavior and your own ways in which you were manipulated, and how have I contributed? And then you need to change those ways. And it all starts by going within and examining your own self. But as usual, the truth community fingers point. I caught yesterday, and I'm going to talk briefly about it, but I caught yesterday Brian's video to Sean at SGT, which people that watch SGT are completely lost in the Trump cult. I've been subscribed to it because, again, I listen to any topic that may seem appropriate to what's going on, and I can filter out all the nonsense and the rhetoric and the agendas, and I have that ability. So I would listen here and there, but not anymore. I unsubscribed, and the reason why is because if you listen to what Brian was explaining, Brian is a true anarchist. He understands natural law. He points out the hypocrisy of the Trump administration and everything going on in the world. And he simply commented that, this channel with 500 million subscribers continues to push this political message. It's part of the divide, whatever he said. And instead of responding back to the topic, again, you have to listen to what happened. You can't just, I'm an SGT report person and that guy Brian's, because all Sean did back was, to ask him if he was in a roid rage because Brian's a muscular dude, long hair, cut your hair, marry your girlfriend. Like, again, the third fucking grade recess yard. Mental behavior, Should we do like Demolition Man? The third fucking grade recess yard. If you know the movie, you get the joke. It's insane. And the content of what is said, not the way it is said. People have a problem with delivery and all this stuff. Whatever people were saying in the comments, you have to listen to what's being said and ask yourself, what is the point and what is true and what is objectively moral? And if you do not arrive at what Brian is explaining, who I think very eloquently, and delicately handled the situation. He could have fired back with insults, and he was very delicate and he was very eloquent and asked for a public discussion. And, all he did was hit him back. Sean hit Brian back with more insults and, pointing out inconsistencies like he lied right off the bat. He's got the same subscribers as me. Well, again, he doesn't. Brian's first channel isn't really accessible. Nothing goes on it. Nothing travels. It was hit months ago by the tyranny called YouTube, owned by Google, run umbrella under Alphabet, subsidized by government, and censored. Because, again, censorship is occurring. People can pretend it's not. But if you're speaking the actual truth from an unbiased state and you're not getting pulled from one direction to another and being polarized by all the nonsense, those are the people who are going to be the enemy. And it seems to me that, Sean just continued to paint him that way instead of listening to a word he says. But if you realize that channel is complete shill political nonsense anyway, then, but again, most people think that, a lot of people, unfortunately, the deep state, Trump's getting them, and thank God. Sean says, could you imagine if that witch Hillary was in there? Yeah, I think that if Hillary was in there, they wouldn't have got away with a quarter of the shit that's going on in this fucking past 4 years since Trump got in. It was a genius move by the cabal that runs the world to put this muppet in there. And the central bankers are dancing every day while he's in there. And this guy tells you nonsense about the stock market that he knows isn't true. And people just ignore the 5G, ignore the red flag laws, ignore, the Project for the American Century Wars and the censorship of people that dare to criticize government, let alone Israeli government. Oh my God, you can't criticize government. No matter what they do, no matter what nonsense they pull. I want to just play a few clips because, again, I'm really just trying to get the fluidity of what I want to do. But the reality of the show is not just going to be me coming on and playing a few clips and getting off. I'm just demonstrating, I guess, to myself whether or not I can run this by myself on this laptop with 10 million windows open and keep a somewhat of a fluid show going. So we'll give it a try and see how it goes. Today, and I'm only gonna play a few clips. They're not very long, but while I'm doing this, whether it goes out or whether it doesn't, if I do put this up on YouTube, I'd like it to have some content in it that matters, and I'm not going to make a big long thing. So I'm just going to go over a couple of today's research material that I watched today. That's brand new from today. One of them was David Icke's newest Dot Connector video, in which he talks about free speech and political correctness. And, again, he's been talking about it for decades, but now you can hear the words and look around and see it happening and put it into context as one of the billions of things going on around the world that are taking everyone's freedoms away, particularly now here in this country where they're really trying to strip it as they've been stripping it for decades in various ways. Now it's all coming to a head. So they really want to want to start the division with the political correctness and the taking away of basic freedoms. All the things that this country was built on, which are enshrined in the Constitution, that every single fucking person, not just in this country, but on this planet, has a right to, which is your freedoms, your freedom of speech, and your right to protect that speech, your freedom to be yourself, which again enshrined in the Constitution, but inherent upon birth, given by the Creator to everyone. So whether this country or that country, it's all of these governments playing good guy and bad guy that are pitting everyone against each other. Pull your heads out of your asses and start to get ourselves ready. See, this is where we're headed, and I play that for a reason, because that's the joke of the future that they want to bring in here. But you won't even think to say or violate the verbal morality statute, because our brains are going to be linked to a cloud to make us super genius, remember? So in this first clip, David Icke talks about bringing in the tyranny. And again, this is from this morning. I'm going to post all the links if I do post it. So, but if I don't, go to David Icke's website, YouTube channels, and get the books. Take your predetermined ideas about being a lizard guy and suspend them, put them in suspended animation for a minute, and realize the research available to you that this man has just unbearably and continuously collected and put out for people to learn from. The man is a gift to this planet. The research and pattern recognition that has been put together in the collection of his works, whether you agree with his conclusions or not, or if you can get past the ridicule stage of, when he thought he was Jesus, I'll prove he's a shill. Everybody's just, again, third grade mentality. In this clip, again, David Icke's talking about the tyranny, the incoming tyranny that we face.
Since the start, I've been pointing out that there is an agenda behind this. And it's an agenda that those that are policing it, that call themselves woke, overwhelmingly have no idea exists. If you want to bring in a tyranny, and you look at any tyranny, doesn't matter if it's a fascist tyranny, a Marxist tyranny, whatever, every single one of them wants to control information, wants to control the opinions and the information that people receive. Why? Because people form their perceptions from information received, and if you control information received, you're going to a very large extent manipulate and impose perception.
And that's what this is all about. People's perception will create the stimuli in their lives that they react to, what they will ignore, what they will pay attention to, how they will think, what they will believe, what they won't believe. It all comes from their perception, which, again, this is about not only programming perception, but programming perception and then pitting it against one another in a divide and rule scenario, until the end, where they can bring us all happiness and peace by connecting us to the crazy AI. Great idea. So, David Icke goes on to talk about more of this incoming tyranny.
So you don't want people, if you're a tyranny, to know what's really happening in the world. You want them to believe what you want them to believe is happening because it suits what you want to do and where you're pushing society.
And, these are the things that people need to study to learn how social engineering works, how epigenetics works, how important the formative years of a child are to the development of that child, and all of these various ways that the programming and indoctrination begins, and how much of it are we, because we want our kids to get ahead and succeed in the world, and how much are we helping to program based on our programming? Do we have political views and take sides, or do we want what's right and just for everyone? Do we realize that, we've been at war now for, thousands of friggin' years. It's insane. And everyone that really understands what's going on here has seen this entirety of the entirety of these wars just come right off these Project for a New American Century pages that are available, again, for anyone to research, and various other aspects of the agenda that want to centralize and tie in resource control and socialism so that everybody gets everything from government and then they set the prices. And, everyone on this planet lost their minds and think that they're going to start giving shit out for pennies and not making rules for who gets what and why they get them. And then, what are we going to sit and go, yeah, well, he doesn't deserve it because he, smokes marijuana or whatever nonsense people think they have a right to judge each other by. These are the things we're here to get over, and we better get over them quickly, because if we don't, this shit's on its way. Again, David Icke and many people have been talking about this, including George Orwell, written in his famous novel 1984, which True Stream Media ended up doing a good piece on, which I've explained many times as well, his connection to the Fabian Society and to Aldous Huxley, who was one of his college professors, and Orwell, who wrote his works more, in my opinion anyway, as if he was warning people about this. Huxley more was trying to get humanity to embrace this future, this dystopian future. David Icke again spoke a little bit about 1984 in this morning's Doc Connector.
So if you look at George Orwell in 1984, a big theme of it was policing the language, replacing, as he said, old speak, which was language, words that could express detail, and you could define your thoughts and opinions in a very detailed way, being replaced in the Big Brother Society by Newspeak, which was a language in which basically you couldn't say anything of any detail, and you had to talk around everything, so you never actually got to the point and the core of it.
Now, I'll explain how subconscious that works if you're not conscious of it. I actually did it last night while talking to Lisa on our podcast when I was trying to explain some of the social engineering aspects of Survivor. And I found myself tongue-tied trying to simply explain the man-hating and the attack on testosterone and the masculine principle that exists in some of the newer survivors. Of course, it's everywhere. Frankly, she spit it out of me. You know what I mean? This programming is powerful if we're not conscious of it. And I realized it later when I was getting it posted and semi-re-listening to it to make sure it was working. I realized, shit, I did exactly that subconsciously without realizing. And it comes from a good-hearted place. They know how to work the emotions. They understand this psychological makeup because they've programmed it to be, I have two more quick clips of David, and I want to get them played in case I do get this posted. So he continues on about political correctness.
And that's what political correctness is. It is a means of policing the language so we can no longer express our thoughts and opinions. And if you can't express them, then they don't circulate, and what's left for people to form their perceptions from is the official narrative of everything.
And this clearly is what they're doing. Destroying, as David has pointed out in his books and talks and lectures and interviews, destroying the mainstream media with fake news, and that's why it's so horrible. The propaganda is just nonsense. Yet some people still friggin' watch it. It's insane. Many people do. It's insane. But moving everything onto the internet that can then be censored by algorithms, controlled by shadow banning, and eventually the same top dogs are just controlling the same news. It's just moved, because that is the entire point. Everything is to come from the internet eventually. That's the plan, as they hook us up and assimilate us to this foreign technological world. Because again, technology has a positive use, of course. It can liberate humanity if we began to understand morality and bring us to not the potential, the absolute use of free energy. It's out there. It's understood and known. It's being used for nefarious reasons right now because the people that run this world are trying to keep their control of it. And they're not going to give up their control of knowledge and resource control by giving everyone free energy, but they're going to continue to pretend that's what they're trying to do and make it cleaner and greater. And, oh, green energy, let's carbonize or let's demonize carbon dioxide, the gas of life, which is actually low right now as far as the atmosphere and what's good for plants. See, plants need carbon dioxide, and the parts per million, I think, are and I think it might have been David Icke bringing it up recently, 400 parts per million. And if you understand how low that is, if you've ever grown a garden, they should be in the thousands, a couple thousand, 1,800, something like that. And they're demonizing it, demonizing the gas of life, that we are carbon-based, we breathe out, we feed the plants with it. Insane that they're able to sell a concept about climate and never mention the sun or the sun cycles or its comparison to the earth temperatures over thousands of years and how they correlate. The absolute research that you would look into if you were looking for climate patterns. But no, we just demonize with propaganda and people, and if you say anything different, political correctness kicks in. And David's last clip on political correctness here.
And as more and more information, in the end, they want all of it, is transferred to the internet, you're in a situation where you can algorithmically dictate what people see and hear, which leaves something else. It leaves one thing that can still communicate information that challenges the narrative, and that's freedom of speech, where you can have the freedom to speak your truth, even if they're censoring you on the internet. You can do it to among your friends. You can do it among your workmates. You can do it in other ways that you can make happen because you have freedom of speech. And it's a simple thing. Freedom of speech is the freedom to speak your truth. And thus this goal of completely controlling everything that people see and hear cannot reach its totality while people have freedom of speech.
And that is why the war is on freedom of speech right now. And that's why it's so important for people to speak. I realized I had the audio down a bit from when I faded out the music in the beginning, which is my best friend's band, actually, from the 90s. My best friend who passed away, that's his original music, wrote it all, performed it all when I used to play in the bars in Philly. In case you wondered what that song was, it's not ripped off from anywhere. I'm allowed to play it. And but this is what they're attacking, freedom of speech, because they can go after the internet, but our voice, it's up to us what we speak. And what we speak, again, will only come from how we perceive the world. So if we continue to stay locked into this dichotomy of polarization and buy into all the propaganda because we think we're being good law-abiding citizens, we're walking ourselves right into the slavery, right into the AI smart cities, right into the entire agenda. So I do want to play a couple quick clips in case I do decide this is good enough to post. Last week or so, a couple of weeks ago, John Whitehead was on the Reluctant Preppers channel, which is a great channel. If you don't listen to that, a lot of economic information. Kind of goes along with Greg Mannarino if you listen to Greg, and you should. But John Whitehead was on, and they were discussing, again, exactly what David's discussing, the ongoing tyranny all around us. And these are the things that Brian was trying to kind of point out about Sean's information that he puts out every day. Look at what's going on around us, and you're going to sit here and pretend that Trump is your buddy. Look what's going on in the past 4 years. How the hell can anybody walk to a ballot box after what we've just seen? As I said, if that woman Clinton would have gotten in there, they would have gotten away with half the shit. People would have been in the streets screaming socialism, oh, the wars, 5G, look at the chemtrails, they're taking our guns. People will be going nuts all over the place. But they put a pretend rebel in, and people go, daddy, they got it. And now we're all banding together with our daddy hats. And if you point that out, you're a crazy liberal, democratic, socialist, tyrannical, crazy person. You know what I mean? Because you have actually acquired critical thinking skills in your life, and you apply them to your daily fucking behavior and your daily life, anyway, quick clip from John Whitehead, and again, I will post the entire interview if I do post this, talking about our local police departments and how they are set up, and how they are tied together as well.
Clear, the Second Amendment was designed to allow the citizens to have the ability to resist an armed government. But the way things are going, if you look really carefully at how the local police are armed this day with grenade launchers, MRAPs, which are tanks on tires, sniper rifles, all the equipment they have, financed by the federal government, by the way. If you think you have a local police department, that's just baloney. Most local police departments today are financed, all their equipment's by the federal government, and the FBI consults with them on a regular basis.
And I, as a retired police officer, will attest to that. Among the areas here in which I live, the federal grants and federal presence is overwhelming, which was not there when I was there in the 90s, pre 9/11. John goes on to talk about the UN soldiers and the confiscation, disarmament soldiers that they want to hire, as if you have not seen, was posted for jobs here in America.
United Nations hiring English-speaking disarmament officers.
Sorry.
I mean, it's a concern, and it should be raised. And I would think that if the President of the United States was really concerned, he would raise it and say, what exactly how these people are going to be, are they going to be on American soil or whatever? They may not be. But we should know really clearly what in the heck they're going to be doing. But if they're, with all we're seeing today, I mean, it's just, I think, to be honest with you, we're moving into a global government, and we better get ready for it and get ready for it. And we're already in a very strange way. When you go in the store and the products you buy are all from China, and we're supposedly opposed to China, or Taiwan or whatever, I mean, everything we get is coming from foreign countries. So what in the world is American anymore?
Now, again, these are going to go along with a clip that I want to play from Greg Mannarino before I leave, in which he too was on Reluctant Preppers, and it's just the beginning intro clips that were put together before his interview, because these. There's my alarm going off. I wanted to be off by now, but we're going to finish up. These all connect: the economy, the wars, the polarization, the propaganda. It all connects, and of course, it's very easy to see once you step back and see the big picture. And this is why we are seeing the behavior of the crackdown of free speech and wanting to, surveil everybody, and facial recognition and 5G and real IDs and all this nonsense. It's not to make everyone safe, people. It's to make everyone way more enslaved and to completely transform human society into, as I said, a soul inside a body that's fed thoughts from a cloud. If you don't understand that that's where we're going, then you don't understand how your body works. Here's John just talking about surveillance.
When you have the Trump administration setting up an agency to track you on your apps and your Google's watching everything you're doing so they can get you before you become aggressive. So, and you can't, if you say the wrong word. I mean, you have the Department of Homeland Security doing threat assessments on homes in America from green to red. If you go back to the Obama administration in 2009, the Obama administration issued 3 basic orders. One was right-wing extremism, left-wing extremism, and Operation Vigilant Eagle, where if you're a returning veteran, you're an extremist. And they use the words extremist and terrorist in those memos interchangeably. And you got the National Defense Authorization Act, and Trump has just signed that up again, which allows the president to say, hey, Dunnigan Kaiser, he's a weirdo. He may be an extremist. They can knock on your door and you disappear. We've had cases like that.
See, now, again, these are points Brian's trying to make by pointing out that Sean being pro-Trump on his channel and that he's supporting tyranny. And if you can't see that point, then your response, if you're Sean, is cut your hair, you steroid guy, marry your wife, and you just slander and kill the messenger and paint him to be in a bad light so that, psychologically people won't listen to what he's actually saying, because this is what's going on. They even put it in the Captain America movies, just the Winter Soldier movie. And here it is. It's exactly what they're doing, exactly what Captain America stood up against. But in real America, we're kind of like, yay, I get to click this faster movies. This is so convenient. Hey, Google ass, turn on my heat because I'll be home in 5 minutes and I can't push that fucking button all by myself. John Whitehead's last message that I'm going to play, last clip that I'm going to play, is a great message. And I do have one more, but I'm going to start to move it along because I want to play Greg's clip before I go. But this clip in particular is the message, people. Wake up.
People, wake up. Do your education. Turn off the damn TV for a while. 150 hours and get focused. The news on TV is the government news. If you look at CNN or Fox or whatever, the people that are doing the analyzing are all former NSA agents, FBI agents. The government's giving me information, the same government that's trying to arrest me if I move my face in the wrong way or have the wrong emotions. Wake up, folks.
Absolutely. And you know what? This last clip isn't that long. It's only 30-some seconds. I'm going to play it as well. And that's exactly the message. Wake up. Look around you. Stop ignoring what's going on around you and start using your brain and realizing that this is what began. And again, World War II, understand the propaganda behind that. Understand the same people were doing the same things using puppet governments, shutting down speech, invading countries, taking rights, and realize what you're seeing. Sorry if you think it's scary, but you're not really here to just kind of skippity-doo-dah. Don't you think your soul came here to grow the species and grow your soul by understanding your own freedom and the importance of freedom, and that the goal of spirituality is freedom for all, and how freedom works, understanding the laws around freedom, and that they're based in, oh my God, I thought I turned that off, and that they're based in the understanding of true objective morality, and that's how these laws of behavior work. Oh, I used the word karma. It's the devil. It's New Age. Understanding these karmic laws, these natural laws, are how we obtain our freedom, understanding how they apply to us, and understanding that we've been inverting them through all of our history, under the rule of kings and monarchs and dictators and government, which is all the same thing. Rule by one, rule by a few. All the same families. Go do the research, research them back, and trace them back, all the way back. Hey, related to Charlemagne. Hey, it's all the same nonsense. All the same families, all the same bloodlines, 13 of them. Listen to the people that have done the research and taken the time to do this work, not the idiots that sit and trash their research because it's not biblical. And one God's going to punish the wicked, going to save you, even though, uh, being involved in as a Catholic my entire life, being around other Catholics my entire life, between my own Catholic school education and then again putting my own kids in, but actually being a parent, not letting the schools raise my kids, but the moral aspects and the understanding of a creator God can certainly be taught, and then really taught by the parent, and utilizing these schools while public schools are sticking boys and girls together in the bathroom at 6 years old. It's kind of a good alternative. Homeschooling is a great alternative if you can do it. But having the realization that this is the way so many religious, Catholic, Christian, whatever people, Judaism, Muslim, this is the way all people think. This is my beliefs. This is what they are. This is the way it is, and everybody else is wrong. And they can't see that at the core of all these religions, we all believe the same thing, and doing no harm to one another, do unto others. Actually, don't do unto others as you would not want done to yourself. Makes more sense than do unto others as you would do unto yourself, because maybe you would do things to yourself other people wouldn't. So do not do unto others that which you would not have done to yourself. Makes a hell of a lot more, brings a hell of a lot more meaning to that statement. And it's what we're here to learn as a species, as an aggregate species, to move forward free for the first time ever. Scares a lot of people. Last clip from John Whitehead on the Reluctant Preppers, I think.
As FBI statistics show, the crime rate in America is basically at an all-time low. Americans are not a criminal society, basically not. So why all this? Again, I think there's a paranoia. I think the people in power fear something's going to happen. There's going to be an economic collapse. They fear that. Like I said, 75,000 stores are predicted to be closing by 2026. You can look around yourself. Malls are closing. I mean, stores are going out of business around the country. Something is wrong. This is not a country that's building up. It's a country that seems to be imploding.
Which is why I wouldn't say they fear that. The economic collapse and all of that is part of it. They're bringing it about. What they fear is people waking up to what it really is. They fear the outcome. They need to steer, as they always have, through the Hegelian dialectic, their outcomes. But in the age of information, the internet, and a lot of information out there, I personally hope that more people understand this truth than we are led to believe through even our limited communications, as great as they are, through the internet, and best that they've ever been, in any of our lifetimes, that we can go back in history, and actually say for sure, I would say we've been at this point before, but, again, understanding that it's the same Hegelian dialectic steering of the outcome of events that they have brought about in order to bring the outcome that they want, whether it's, small things or larger things like we're seeing now, the centralization of power through World War I, again, a false flag, beginning that, World War II, the Lusitania, World War II, the allowing of Pearl Harbor, and this now same Middle Eastern war that they have been calling for ever since Albert Pike wrote about it, to be brought about. Multiple theater wars and the Project for an American Century, if we want to get into official language of today, by the knotheads and criminals running the world today. So I just wanted to bring that into Greg Manarino's clip from the Reluctant Preppers. I'll post this as well, this interview. It's a great interview. It's about a half hour long. And I'm also going to post Greg's. He does a morning and before trade, or when the market opens and after it closes, clip every day. And I'm going to post the latest clip with this podcast, and hope people begin to really realize what's going on in these stock markets and what they are setting the entire middle class up for. Mad Max upon, Mad Max 27 in 3D. So here is Greg Mannarino on the Reluctant Preppers, and this is like 2 minutes or something. It's a conglomeration of some clips from this interview that he did with the Reluctant Preppers that I will post.
The Fed is recapitalizing the banks. There's not enough, believe it or not, despite the trillions of dollars that are floating around, there's not enough, believe it or not. Why? Because the system demands a relentless, unstoppable acquisition of debt on an unprecedented scale just to keep the illusion real where we are. It can't stop. Once we stop, what do we get? We get Mad Max. Everything stops. We get a credit freeze, and then a credit freeze is one of the reasons why the Federal Reserve is involved in this repo scam. The big banks, the mega banks, they're absorbing every single smaller institution they possibly can. They are becoming financial monsters themselves, way too big to fail. Whatever happened to that, right? So these institutions are, again, they're consolidating enormous power. Why? Because they know it's coming down the pike. So they're getting ready for it. While the people sit here and they just let it happen to them. They are sheep. They are sheep being marched into a furnace. And they're all, most of them, sadly, are in a lot of trouble. People don't know that the United States military is the enforcement arm of the Federal Reserve. As a matter of fact, people also don't understand that the petrodollar only exists because the U.S. military is mandated to protect the oil of OPEC nations, for which OPEC nations have accounts, all of them, with the Federal Reserve. This is stuff that anyone can look up. As a matter of fact, we had President Trump recently threaten to pull Iran, pull their account from the Federal Reserve. Anyone think that's kind of odd? Nobody out here, not me or anyone I can think about, is smart enough to know what the actual cost of debt would be. The debt suppression cycle that we are in and the debt expansion, I mean, we're suppressing rates and we're expanding the debt at the same time, is unprecedented. It's unbelievable. It's literally unbelievable, but that's what's going on here. No one's smart enough to know the true value of debt. At this point, that can never be paid back. It's never meant to be paid back, and it never will be paid back. It's the mechanism of the system. It's how it works. The debt market is the main driving force behind asset prices. If the debt is in a bubble that we can't even believe, how can we have a true value on anything? The stock market itself, despite the companies themselves, which do have value, is a derivative of the freaking debt market. So if the debt market is not real, how could the price of a single stock be real? I hope people are trying to get what I'm saying. This is an environment that is truly epic.
And I'll tell you what, if you are not familiar with Greg and you do have extra money, the guy does know how to play this market. And ultimately, of course, like most people who understand what's coming, gold, silver, cryptos, understanding to become your own central bank. I do the best I can. I have a little of everything, but, little, and food as well, you should have, because that is what actually got me into seeing years and years and years ago this bigger picture when we saw what was happening in 2008, what was coming, and then you correlate it with the rise and fall of money over human history. And then from there, it just, snowballs. And when you see what they're doing, like he does, you can predict what they're going to do. And he goes on to explain how crude oil right now is what's controlling the market, and it is the lifeblood of the military-industrial complex war machine right now. At least in theory, it is. I know they have many, many other technologies, but right now, that is what this is about. It's about resource control, and that is what is keeping the market so propped up. And, the fact that oil been struggling a bit. As Greg said, watch out for some false flags, some false flags that will drive up oil. And of course, if we know what's going on in the Middle East and what they're trying to do and set Iran up for and tell us they're the bad guys and woo woo woo, and we got to get in there and sanction them and starve the people, and oh, but we love them, we're going to free them, yay, liberation, here we are, hey Libya, hey Syria, hey Iraq, hey everybody, woo, we're America, here to save you. Bullshit, 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 bullshit. You know, that actually earns, saying shit like that actually earns
You are fined 1 credit for a violation of the verbal morality standard.
because that's actually immoral. That's going to war and doing all that shit, and then selling it to the people and then buying it all is actually immoral. So we can have that be the verbal morality statute. Violation. So anyway, I'm going to close it out right now and see if this was good enough, fluid enough, how it sounded, and maybe I'll even post it. I realized halfway through I could hear my son upstairs playing his video game and yelling with all his friends, so hopefully it didn't come through. So if it did, obviously I won't post it. And if I check it and it sucks, obviously, or it didn't flow right or whatever, I won't post. But I do want to post it. I'm sick of practicing and playing around with it, and I posted that one last week. It was all right, you know what I mean? So I think this one went a little bit better. So just an idea of how I want to do this for now. I'd love to have video and slides and all those kind of things, and my own self up there on screen, and we'll get there. Right now, like I said, by myself on a laptop trying to bring all this together. It's just about getting information out right now. It's about speaking before we can't speak, and it's about speaking, as David Icke says, your truth. I'm more apt to say speak the truth, research and know the truth. And for all of these polarized topics, just shelve them. Because the truth is we are enslaved, and we're headed for total enslavement. Controlled, smart citied, AI programmed surveillance out the wazoo that our own apathy is going to allow to be brought in. We need to focus on the problem at hand. And the best way to do that is to get to know and understand yourself. Who am I? What am I doing on this planet? What is my life about? Did I come here to run the Monopoly board? Did I come here to go to the booby bar? Did I come here to smoke pot? Did I come here to be a good neighbor? What is it that I came here to do? Did I come here to make all these different choices? And you'll come to the realization of what you are doing here personally. And you'll see what we're all doing here. Once you begin to really internalize whatever religion, whatever spirituality, whatever you believe, when you understand what that message is and how to internalize the stories, parables, teachings, allegories, poems, paintings, all the things, to ancient texts, mystery tradition teachings, all of it, and realize the main point of all of it is to internalize all of these concepts and realize that energy that is you is all. God is all. And there are laws, just like there's physical laws, there's behavioral laws, and we have to figure them out. And they've been hidden and occulted from us. And we're here to understand it. And we're here to help others understand it, because if others don't understand it, then we will suffer the same fate in the aggregate as they will. Because this is a co-creation. It's not sit there and meditate and I'm making my own world. You can work the law of attraction in ways if you begin to understand how behavior and emotions and certain aspects of knowing can play on an individual small scale. But that's not going to save you from slavery because this is a co-creative process. And if you're doing that on an island of 10 people and 9 people believe in all kinds of crazy governmental tyrannical shit, you're still going to be stuck in the governmental crazy tyrannical shit, no matter how much you sit and ohm your meditation and feel fine through it. But, again, we've done that as well. This is where, you can take a man. You can't take a man's mind, an old saying, woman's as well, but the old saying that if you understand who you are, all of this, no matter what it is, and humanity has been through some pretty treacherous things. It's time to end all that simply by changing our perception into understanding truth and accepting one another based in moral and the understanding of objective morality and the laws that work all around that. and that it's been hidden from us on purpose by our rulers and masters, by our farmers. So right now, that's what we are. So, all right, we're going to cut this for now, and we're going to see if we can fade in some music. Again, my buddy's band, Spectacular, miss them. And we'll see how this sounded. You know, this is what the idea is going to be. We're going to talk about various topics, subjects, real world to self. Eventually, try to make it as big as we can as far as picture, video. But for now, this is Tom Bigland signing off. Thanks for listening to Tom Time. Get learning, get speaking.